coverage.
More experience.
More stats.
And that's final.
ET Final Score is brought to you by Ashley Furniture.
Hello and welcome to the ETFinalScore.com High School Football Playoff Edition. I'm Phil Hicks and I'm joined by Harold Wilson today. We're going to be talking about the John Tyler Lions first off. And this is the Class 4A Division I playoffs. The Lions face Waxahachie at 7:30 p.m. Friday at Homer B. Johnson Stadium in Garland. Welcome, Harold. What did you think about last week's win over John Tyler's win over White House?
It was a thriller, and you know, coming into the game, obviously the playoff positioning was already decided. John Tyler was going to be the top seed in D1, White House in D2, but you know, in basketball sometimes they play warm-up games. You know, some of the good teams will come together and they'll get that last good test before the playoffs. That's what I thought about the John Tyler White House game. It was a good warm-up game. It was a thriller, and it showed both teams what they were capable of, and it also showed them what they need to work on as well. But it was a great win by John Tyler to be able to end their unbeaten season and to be able to go in the playoffs with an 8-game winning streak and another district championship. The school's 4 straight. So a lot of confidence right now for John Tyler.
Now, the Lions rallied from a 24-0 deficit, so that must give them confidence entering the playoffs. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. Sometimes it's easy to gauge a team by how they win, you know, but I like to look at how a team is when they're behind. You look at JT's, the 2 games they struggled this year against White House, getting down 24-0, and their only loss against Lancaster, they trailed 26-7, got on the 1-yard line before losing 26-21, fumbling on the last play from the 1. You look at White House, I mean, they really showed some resiliency, you know, coming back from a 24-0 hole against such an offensive juggernaut. So right now, if nothing else, you know John Tyler's going to be tough to beat. That's true. Now, the Lions obviously have a target on their jersey. They're the second-ranked team in the state. What are their biggest strengths and weaknesses entering the playoffs?
Well, starting with the strength, just experience. You know, you got a team that's got 17 guys that started last year for a team that went to the state semifinals. So it's not a whole lot you can throw at this team that they hadn't seen, and I think that's one reason why you saw the comeback against Lancaster. You saw the comeback against White House, and obviously offensively this team can move the football. I mean, they had a bad half against White House, but they end up still with 45 points, and that's not scoring from the 2-yard line. So, I mean, they easily could have put up 50 points, and right now the offense seems like it's getting back close to fifth gear. Greg Ward starting to run the ball a little bit better from the quarterback position. You got just so much depth at the wide receiver position. The defense looked to be a team strength last week. They got maybe exposed a little bit, but I know Coach Holmes and those guys are going to be looking to kind of right that ship this week on defense. As far as the weaknesses, just lining up running the football still seems like something this team isn't comfortable doing. They hadn't had a lot of success running between the tackles, and last week they had an early fumble, and you saw them kind of go away from that. So they became a one-dimensional team. So if it's one thing that kind of jumps out at you is John Tyler too one-dimensional? Will they be able to run the ball well enough to make a deep run?
Let's see. Now, Waxahachie, not too many East Texas schools play them. All I know about them is their color is green, and they used to be a great basketball school. But what about this football team? They got a lot of tradition, too. Warren State in '92, actually a couple of years ago, I believe 3 years ago, went 13-1 and got eliminated by Longview, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Their coach, he's been there 13 years, Coach Beam, and he's doing a good job with him. He says this team, I talked to him earlier, he says this is not an athletic team, but they do like to run the football, which I think if you're going to beat John Tyler, you need to shorten the football game. And last week, White House kind of got into a scoring fest with them trying to outscore them, but Waxahachie is going to shorten the clock down. I think that speaks volumes about their ability to pitch 3 shutouts. They already have 3 shutouts this year. And without them having the athletes, you know, those dangerous athletes, obviously they're doing something right as far as being able to control the clock. So I think what you're probably going to see is a team kind of in the mode of a Kilgore. Not fancy, not flashy. They're going to come, run the football, shorten the game, play solid defense, and try to keep John Tyler's offense off the field as much as they can. Very good. Now, the Lions have got deep in the playoffs the last 3 years. What are their chances this year? All last year, you know, obviously they were flirting with a state championship. I always said I won't put that on that team. They were too junior laden. This year, I'm going to put it on this team. I mean, they got the seniors. They got a defense that's much improved, only giving up 15 points a game. The offense averaging 38 points a game. Quarterback Greg Ward, almost 30 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
you know how important the quarterback position is. They've got bona fide leader. I mean, they've got a young, excitable coach in Coach Rick Holmes who really has his team ready to play. John Tyler can go all the way to the state championship round. If this team doesn't play in Cowboy Stadium in late December, it's a disappointment. I mean, it's just that simple.
All right, we'll see if the Lions can make it all the way to Cowboy Stadium, and we appreciate you joining us here. I'm joined by Shane Stark, who covers the East Texas area. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you.
There's a number of games in East Texas this weekend. The playoffs begin in the Bi-District. It's a lot of excitement in the air. First, we want to talk about the White House and Ennis game. What about the Wildcats?
Yeah, you know, they had the big game on Friday night against John Tyler, and I know Coach McFarland was talking about this being, you know, how do you, each team was, you know, so up for that game. How do you, you know, come back down to earth and prepare for another game? So I guess that's something they've been working on or will be working on this week. You know, they had a big 24-0 lead against John Tyler, and then, you know, JT's just had this miraculous comeback to win the district 16-4A championship. They get an Ennis team that looked great. They're like the Ennis teams of old for much of the year, but they've lost 2 straight heading into the postseason. Both losses were pretty, you know, commanding losses. So we'll see how that works out for them. You know, it's a, you know, another big game for White House in this season. You know, they have high hopes. You know, by playing JT as close as they did, you know, that automatically, you know, it looks like they're a team that, you know, may have a chance to go pretty far in the playoffs. Then also another, you know, intriguing thing about it is if they win, they could draw Sulphur Springs, you know, in the area round, and that's become a big rivalry game for them.
You know, David Warren, he went on to Florida State and then with Oakland Raiders, so he was one of the top players in JT history. Yeah. So there's a number of matchups, District 15-3A and the District of Doom 16-3A. I wonder if they're tired of talking about District of Doom anyway, but Gilmer's probably not since they won the district. But go over those matchups this week.
Well, in Division I, you have Athens, which, you know, they got into the playoffs with a big win against Brownsboro last week. They're taking on Kilgore, which, you know, they were undefeated, then lost in the 16-3 championship game to Gilmer, which is funny. Kilgore was number 4, and they dropped all the way out of the poll this week, which I found kind of surprising.
I still voted for them, so.
Yeah, I saw that. And, you know, so you have that matchup, and then over, you know, down in Division II, you have Canton taking on Gilmer, which, you know, it may seem like a kind of a tough task, but I can't remember the year, but I think people remember that game out at Rose Stadium a few years back with when Canton
G.J. Kenny was
surprised Gilmer, you know. So I'm sure Canton, you know, they'll maybe, you know, looking back at that, saying, hey, you know, we can do this. Then you have Van against Henderson in the other game, which that's a very intriguing matchup as well. It's you know, for us, it's 2 of our bigger districts, probably our 2 biggest districts in Class 3A, and so you got them meeting in the first round, and so we're going to lose half our teams in the first round.
You know, I guess that guarantees 3 more of our teams will advance.
3 more of our teams will go, so that's good.
So that Thursday night game is Gilmer and Canton at Rose Stadium, right?
Right,
7 o'clock.
Gilmer Canton at Rose Stadium, and then Van Henderson play 7:30 Friday at Rose Stadium, and then
Kilgore and Athens play 7:30 Friday at Wildcat Stadium.
Wildcat Stadium, White House. And I forgot to mention White House. They're at 7:30 Friday at Mesquite Memorial.
Mesquite Memorial, great stadium. That's always a fun stadium to. How about some of the other games? Any other ones that you want to? I mean, there's a lot of great games, but any other particular jump out at you?
Yeah, it's hard. Well, one that I think everybody was looking at all season was Palestine Carthage. I know Palestine came into the year with a lot of expectations, and people from the beginning were talking about, hey, they could meet, you know, in the first round, and that happened. So that's a pretty intriguing matchup. You got you know, Lancaster, the team that beat JT. They got Jacksonville Thursday at Forney, which, you know, Lancaster is or Lancaster. How do you say
Lancaster.
it?
I think they said that Lancaster up there.
They're you know, that's a tough matchup for Jacksonville, but that's a good chance for them to see where they're at. Man, just a whole lot of games. We're blessed with a lot of good football teams in our area, and so we got a lot of teams that made the playoffs, and a lot of teams that probably keep us busy for a few weeks to come.
Well, just one more question. Who might you see be playing near Christmas time at Cowboy Stadium?
Well, John Tyler, especially. I think that this team that has shown twice this year that, you know, you can't count them out. You know, in the Lancaster win or lost, they were down really big, and then you know, they came back. So they're definitely a team that I could see going pretty far. You know, in 3A, I still think Kilgore, even though they fell to Gilmer. They're still a team that I think has what it takes to go pretty far. Then obviously Gilmer and Henderson, they're perennial, state title contenders. So I see them those two teams having an opportunity as well. And then White House, like I said earlier, which I already mentioned that. So.
And some of the other teams, like in 2A and A, are getting buys this week, like ARP and Winsboro and some of those schools. So.
Yes, some of these teams that we're not talking about, you may think, oh, they didn't make the playoffs, but yeah, they made the playoffs. They won their district, so they get a first-round bye. So that obviously sets them ahead a little bit. They have that one less game they have to play. So teams like ARP,
Very good. Well, we'll talk about those guys next week. Hello, we're here with Travis Yosting talking about the TAPS playoffs. This is just like the UIL. It's the first week of the playoffs, and we got a couple of games. Travis, who's in action this week?
Well, you got Grace Community there. They finished third in district. They're going to travel to play Fort Worth Christian on Friday. It's at 7 o'clock at Fort Worth Christian. Brook Hill, they finished fourth in the district. They're traveling to Midland Christian. It'll be another 7 o'clock kickoff also at Midland Christian. Interesting thing about the playoffs this year, though, is that the way the TAPS set up the brackets, the District 1 and 2 districts will play each other in the first, second, and third rounds. In the third and fourth districts in TAPS Division 2 will play each other on the other side of the bracket. And therefore, the way the teams are, the way the teams have been the last couple of years, that basically means the state semifinal will, in essence, be the state championship game. If you just look at the strength of the teams, Midland Christian, Dallas Christian are both two great teams, and then you got Parish Episcopal and Grace, who are probably would be able to come out of that bracket with the District 3 and 4 teams without too much trouble. If I had to predict, but it's just the way that brackets are set up. It's a little interesting, but should make for some exciting first couple rounds.
All right, Travis, now Brook Hill won the state championship last year, but they're playing up a division this year. Is that correct?
Right.
How do you think they will do this year?
Well, they did lose a lot of seniors. They're a drastically new team. About the only thing different is their quarterback and a few linemen. They have fared pretty well in a very tough district in TAPS Division 2, but they'll play on Friday the defending TAPS Division 2 state champion in Midland Christian. It should be a good game, though. Midland Christian's star running back, who ran for over 300 yards against Grace Community in the playoffs last year, he's been out injured, tore a ligament in his knee and is out for the season. And so I think Midland Christian is beatable, but it's going to be extremely tough. It's going to take a great game from Brook Hill to take him down.
No, Grace, they're known for the offensive powerness. What do you think about them match up with Fort Worth Christian?
It should be a good game. Grace Community, they played Fort Worth Christian a couple years ago when Grace had their first home playoff game ever, and Grace thought they had the game locked up after a big defensive stand, and then they fumbled it away and they ended up losing the game in heartbreaking fashion. A lot of the players on this year's team, I think, are going to remember that. If they weren't on the team, they were in the stands watching. They're going to remember that and want to, get a little bit of revenge, do it on Fort Worth Christian's home field. And Grace Community is they've got a high-powered offense, averaging about 500 yards a game, but their defense has really stepped up lately, and they'll need that defense come Friday because Fort Worth Christian, they're another run-heavy team like Dallas Parish Episcopal was, and it should be a good game.
And both of those are 7 o'clock kicks. Is that correct? All right. Thanks a lot for joining us, and be sure and check in next week for our second round playoff edition.